Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second residency meeting. We've had a little bit of real life, um, not errors, but what do you call it? Um, some of our members could not make it today. Sorry, I was just setting up the screen, and so I decided to take this opportunity to essentially to walk you through some of what I'm gonna be doing. And so that our next two meetings can be solely focused on both the artwork of Yekta and Kimberly. Um, a little update about the third artist. He has not been in communication at all, so I don't think he'll be part of the show. So it is unfortunate, but that's what happens with COVID, and we have to adjust to that. But anyways, so um, I'm just gonna take you quickly through the process of trying to essentially like deciding on one of my actual paintings. I'm still deciding if it's gonna be a real paint, like a physical painting, or a digital work. I still don't know, but um, so quickly here, if I take you to my showtime, so um, since part of the residency and part of these talks is for you to be in on how our operation works. I'll take this time to explain to you some of my work. And so, um, essentially, ever since I started in fine art school, getting my BFA, I've been really interested in world building and elements of that incorporated into my work. And so, my work mainly focuses on themes of the digital rebirth of the ancient Egyptian afterlife in the metaverse, just simply because um, I have the ability to do that because of the tech being built on top of NFTs and such. And so um, that's my plan. And so that's a little bit about my work. It's just on themes of digital rebirth again. And I consider this to be a lifelong project. I already discussed this with one of my professors a couple of years ago. Um, about how this is essentially has become, this is my career project, if you will, like a lifelong career, ever growing project. And so here, while I do aim to include these works here in our upcoming show, I still want to make a show. And so I'm in the process of like full research for the show. um, and I would like to share to you guys how that actually happens, how at least I consider myself to be an artist, right? How that research process happens. And so I have two main interests uh, um, in as resources that I want to get inspiration from for this work that I want to make. And so one of them is um, Bikinski. So can, I can't spell his name. So usually um, get an image. Oh, where is Zidislaw Bikinski? That's his name. And so I'm interested into some heavier thematic depictions. And so, and when I discovered this person's work, a Polish artist, unfortunately he passed away in 2005. I was blown away. His work is insane. And so, usually this site, I've been doing this since my dad showed me as a child. And so usually websites like wikiart.org will pop up, right? And then these have a full catalog, sometimes even duplicates of the artist's work, right? Everything. Um, and so for some of the works, um, for the painting in our upcoming show, I really want to focus on themes of rebirth, but also themes of complete desolation and loss. And so I'm gonna try to hybridize elements from Bikinski and Keith Kolwitz. Kolwitz's work. My dad also sent me this artist recently. He was like, "Yo, check out her drawings," and I was like, "What the fuck?" And so we will be focusing on a few things. And so essentially, how it starts is, you pick a few images. Now, because I'm focusing on themes of loss and desolation, um, stuff like this immediately draws your eye, right? It's lonely, it's decrepit on its own, right? And then how how the process of all of this gets combined is I'll show you. So, gets combined is actually, well, it's not gonna. I won't show you. I'll explain it to you fairly quickly. It's just picking and choosing what elements of each work to include slowly, um, and then by the end of it, you have a completely new work that's yours, right? You also like you can't copy it verbatim, right? But you can't like I mean with art it's very weird, right? You can sell your recreations of a painting, right, as a recreation, and so when you're sourcing things, you can copy some of the themes, right? Um, but you can't sell it as yours. And so what you do as an artist is as a starting artist, right? Somebody who does not have the mental and visual memory to be able to draw these figures from head, you combine from your sources, right? And that adds up to a unique new work that's completely valid and yours to own and sell, right? And so that's what we do. And so you just zoom in, look at elements from the work, right? And then you also have to don't forget to introduce some elements of yours, right? And so usually I would scroll more, but for the sake of this, and I know Bakinski's work, I've stared at it many, many times. I'm looking for a select few um, that I've already chosen, sort of in my head, to try and copy from and like learn and hybridize together, right? And so for Bakinski himself, both these show really good elements of loss. This does this, but I'm far more interested in this as a background, right, than the foreground main interest of anything, just because um, that. And then we have this. I'm thinking of a different figure. It's a little bit too cliche out there, if you will, and so we just remove that. And this as well, I much prefer this. It's far more stylistically rendered and it's far more gruesome. Um, and funny enough, I think this is a far more effective work at portraying the feel of loss than this. And so we have these, and then I'll move over to Keith Holowitz's work. And my main interest actually lies in a few of her drawings. As you can see, not a lot of her work is documented, and so I'm interested in this. This is a figure. If you saw my Twitter earlier, I did a study of these two mixed with another one, but she has another this, right? These are all woodcuts, I believe it's woodcut. It's really great. And then I actually really like this as well. And so now that you have sort of your resources for um, the paint, for like the work itself, right? I call it painting because I'm used to being in painting class and describing this to fellow students. But once you have the painting, right, an important thing that people don't think about is actually the space of which you exhibit it, right? And so the space is extremely important because you don't want to think of a huge painting, paint it, and forget that it's there, right? It's like sorry, not forget that it's there, but like forget the size of the wall and forget the dimensions and what's actually there in the space that you on the day we call it on put up day, right? On the day you're putting up your work, you find out fuck. I can't even bring this painting through the door. Right now we don't have these limitations, but we still have some limitations within the digital space, right? Because I am using on cyber and this is a multi-person show. We're gonna have to go in and collect um, some like not collect, like pick and choose which areas collect like some works that we have and see if they work. So I'm gonna start a whole new show here real quickly. We'll go with Wolfgang because it's the best one, right? And we get an empty canvas completely, right? And then so now quickly to use an example, right? I want to usually in paintings, right, for a work like this, the bigger you go, it's not a box that gets bigger, right? As paintings usually get bigger, they become more landscape, more rectangular shaped, either oriented towards a landscape orientation or a horizontal orientation, right? And so usually, um, and also in our digital exhibition, we have the limitation of I can't move these things. I can't. I can only display one, right? And so because I have a work here that is poster sized, right? That's a good size, right? Um, Again, I have to figure out how I'm gonna fit this with this, right? So I need to include, as in the show myself, I'm thinking this could just include the writing blurb, right? So it's big enough for you visually to be able to get in close and little information packet, right, about the work, which seems interesting enough. And so you look at it, you're like, okay, cool. How does something that's oriented a little bit differently look? And so we scroll. Let me scroll. So this is on my OpenSea collection, and so I don't have a lot of work collected on here, but so here, some fuckery token, let's go. So this is more landscape orientation for me, right? And so as you can see, if you get bigger, oh, so something, if I want something that is really high quality and big enough, I'll just put it. I can't display it here, right? But on, I need to be aware of my space in the sense of, yeah, but there is space for this right here, right? Um, right. And so again, I'm limited by these walls, but if I go to preview real quick, all these boxes disappear, right? And so you enter it, and then so this is these are the two differences in space, right? Sort of, okay. Um, Again, usually as an artist, you would be thinking, all right, if it's a big work, if it's a massive work on this side of the wall, right? But if it's a work that you want to inspire awe in somebody, you put it on this side of the wall, right? So my Showtime works would be on here, right? Like my foundation, the ones I was showing, these, because I want them to inspire awe, they would be on this side of the wall. But if I'm doing something that requires the viewer to come in and feel very internal with the work, right? And to bring them in closer to the work, I would put it right here. I would even make it smaller, right? You can go really small, right? Right, and then so you preview that. And this is a tactic we use as artists to really bring you in, right? You get really close. Now it's just a little cube in the wall, right? In a real life setting, you'd be squinting in this, like trying to get as close to it. Oh wow, the detail, right? And so now that I have this sort of understanding of, okay, one piece, second work, third work, fourth, right? And then the artists get their space, another artist gets their space, and then because one of the artists is not there, then this could be just full information page or collaborative work. We'll figure that out, right? But I have a little corner that sort of informs me of the size of the work, right? and sort of the orientation. This works better with square, right? Or um, well, this works better with something like a square or landscape. Sorry, horizontal orientation, right? This is a painting of Yekta. He's also in our show, right? I can blow this up to be pretty big, rug size, if you will, and right. Whoa, sorry, it does that. And so I can do that, but I can also replace it and just completely just a square, right? And square paintings don't look that good because of the one reason that they're so perfect that they need to be placed in the middle, right? This would not, this would be have to placed on this wall, right? But I know for a fact that if I choose to, right, and I decide to include two horizontal um, orientations as such, they would work. They wouldn't work very well, right? Because then you run into the limitation of, oh, they're overlapping, right? So you're at the size, but it works far better, right? You better maximize the space, right? And so now with that in mind, we go back to the work that we have selected, right? And then here, let me just close that. I used to use Pinterest early on, but not anymore. Um, just because I really don't know why. I just outgrown it, I guess. But now that we have these, the coolest thing, you can't save these as images. So I had this little called this little application where if you load something, it's a little artboard, right, with all the images that you want right there. So usually I'll have this up when I'm drawing, but because these photos are, I'm not able to download them, um, we'll just have it on the side here. And so I gotta change. Oh, here, let me open up Photoshop, and then I gotta change the screen. Hello. Um, and so usually for a quick study, you work on a small little page. You don't want it to be too big, and so a 4 by 6 inch page works well enough. And then my personal experience, and I canceled the on cyber thing, I believe. Yeah. And my personal experience is from a quick study. If you want to know how you can maximize the page, you'll just put it in landscape and get drawing. And so I have to switch my display here because I do have what do you call it, a drawing tablet. And so now I have, keep in mind, right, when you're drawing, you always want to have your sources close to you within eyesight, um, especially when you're starting as an artist, because otherwise your brain and what you think an image will look like will take over instead of the actual source, and your image will in turn look completely messed up. Um, Try it legitimately and you'll realize the difference. And so you only see the Photoshop thing here, but I have this right here on the side. And so the best thing about studies, right, and a lot of people assume that, oh, that a study needs to be finished, polished, and official. That's not the case at all, right? We're coming up with the rough draft for the painting for the show. I don't need to put in all the methodical work in now, because when I'm actually putting in paint, whether digitally or on the canvas, things can change. And I need to be able to go with that and not be too committed to what I've drawn, right? And so essentially, quick little thing is I have this my whole idea is trying to convey desolation and loneliness, right, within this realm. And so you don't need to add everything, right? Wait, hold on, it's on white. So you just block in the shapes, right? You're getting a feel for the painting, and the work and nothing else. You shouldn't be concerned about anything. And you literally see what I mean, because a lot of our sketches as artists look like crap, and you're like, how the hell is that produced by you? And you're like, just because it's the fluidity allows you a certain freedom, creative freedom, that you don't afford yourself. You can try to afford yourself, but mentally when you're painting specifically, it just your brain is too focused in the zone to be creatively loose and free. Um, that's one of the biggest lessons a painter, like painting teachers, try to teach you, is like when to be loose and free. And so, I have this figured down, and then so immediately I'm thinking, I gotta I gotta introduce another thing here, right? And so quickly I'll go over to this right here. Here, let me see if it will let me draw like so. I don't work with layers at all. Um, I don't know why. Just you don't work with the layers in real life, and so I choose not to work with the layers in digital, just because it also forces you to think on your feet when you mess up. And so earlier I had said that this little drawing here interests me as the background, right? And this is a little bit of a too much of a cliche that happens, right? I want to discuss loneliness and desolation, but not have it be, look at all these lonely fucks sitting on their own there, right? That's not the aim. This is too cliche. This has been used way too many times in the art world for it to render as impactful as you want it, right? But these inform a very good sense of civilization there, but also memory, just because of the haziness. And so you just go as light as you can, right? Just in the back there, right? And then what I usually like to do, because you have, whoa, what the hell? I believe, yeah, because you have all this mist. Yeah, I just add a little bit of mist there to divide it, and then usually you get there, right? And then so immediately you're getting a few things established, right? You already have perspective going, sort of there. And I can include this here and be like, this is sun, right? Like the traditional sun in the corner, right? But it's actually not. It's just the orange light. But I'll just put that there, and it reads. It fully reads it to you, the viewer, right, of the work. And so now, cool. Where else to? And so I like some of these, but I want to go to Keith Kolowitz's work for a second, because I think I want to include some of these. And so I'll look at this work here. This is called The Parents. It's a woodcut print. So these are how these are originally done, is you cut them out into wood. You engrave them sort of into wood, roll the print ink on top of it, and just put your paper on top, or put it on the paper, and you get all of these. And so for this, I will zoom into the corner here, because you have to keep in mind that, what do you call it, composition is very much still important, right? You need to make this compositionally well. And so quickly, I like to add stuff in the corner, but this usually you have to be careful with corner stuff, because it can lead the eye of your viewer directly out of the work, right? You don't think about it, but the way your eye spends time within the work is very contained to how the work is drawn. If there is a huge line going that way out, your eye immediately starts to go around this and then goes out immediately. And so you have to be sort of careful. And so usually what I'll do is, quick block right here, there, and then move that a little bit. That's the head, that's the hand, right? And then move up. Again, like, you really shouldn't care about what you're drawing over. This is not the finalized thing. This is the study of the study, right? Usually what I would do is I would let this, after I quickly do this, I would shade in some stuff, and then you would sit on this for a little bit, So as you can see here, oh, we got a little thing. So that's why you don't want to commit to anything, because then mistakes, you have to fix your proportions, right? So we have this figure here, and that's the foot there, done. Hands, and so if we fit the screen, they're a little bit swayed to the corner, but not exactly in the corner, right? And so again, that's nice. That's the hand. As you can see, if I can go far, if I can go really far in the work and it registers, right? Man holding thing, right? And then if I add this, right? Man holding his wife, right? Right? Fabrics there. These are already hinted there, right? So, okay. It's sort of getting there. And then now, to keep the ideas fresh themselves, you just move. You have to keep moving, right? You don't want to get stuck. You don't want to start shading this fully into detail, because then you lose the whole flow of the work. And so I'll go back to ZD's law here, and then try to find a way to include this here. And so that's the difficult part, is how do you do so? And so I personally enjoy the sense of foreboding figures behind people. Um, it's also a theme present within Kath Kolowitz's work, Death, right? You see it here. This is, if I can zoom out, this is called Death Seizing a Woman, right? And in a few of her other work. You also have to keep in mind when you're researching, yes, you might be using resources, a specific resource, but you're allowed to use themes that are present within another artist's work as well, not just one work of theirs, right? And so it's not showing up here, but there are themes in her work of figures either in front or behind, just either menacing or just sad, right? This is another painting, Death in a Woman, right? All these just sad figures. And so it just happens that, and this is the beauty of using multiple resources, is when things come together, right? And so I'm using this image of mourning parents, and then here I have this little image of the sad mourning person. And so I just, you start to do that, and again, it doesn't have to be quick. You just do this, right? Because it's bony hands and everything. Boom. Right, and these will register as hands. Just wait. You're saying how? You gotta keep in mind, your eye, it fools you a lot, and it shows you a lot of stuff that's not there. You gotta keep in mind your eye moves fairly quickly, right? And so immediately, even if I zoom out here, it looks like a figure holding something, right? And so you just gotta go in. All right, just make sure some of the things are defined. Right, add the figures and the face. Again, nothing too major. And so now we look at the full work, and we have, I'm just gonna add a little ground here, right, to inform us that they are sitting, and then I'm just gonna shade under them, right, add some shadow. And so, and then go in and add a little bit detail here. Not detail, not too much detail, but just something to informs me of the visual, visceral mess that is here, right? And then Cool. And so that looks good enough, right? This, I'm thinking maybe this figure is a little bit too much of a cliche. Oh, we got a live stream question. Anytime, foot 0, anytime. This is exactly for. Um, and so once that is there, you're like, okay, cool. What's next? If you want, you can add more sources. That's what I personally like to do. And so I wanted to use this earlier, but now it's not fitting in with the work, and I'm not feeling it, right? So this just goes, all right, cool. The theme of somebody behind the figure ensnaring them or something is already there, right? And so I no longer need it for it to be active within the work. And so then the more themes of loss. So I can't lie, I really like the hands. That's one of the biggest elements about the work. The hands. I'm a big fan of this figure here, but I really like those hands. And so you're like, how are you just gonna, if you're asking, am I just gonna put hands in there? You're absolutely right. And you're like, what? How? I'll show you. It doesn't need to make sense, right? Because this is just a drawing. The drawing doesn't account for my transitions in paint or anything, right? And so what I think is, right, we have this figure right here. We got his little robe, and then I'm just gonna zoom in on this right here, and then again, this might not work, right? I might end up not including this, but I really like the hands, and so I'll just include them right there. Again, I'm being quick. It doesn't matter the shape of these, because then the reason why I'm trying to be so quick is I'll show you guys real quickly, like, how do you study something like this? At least personally, how I study something like this for a painting. And it's nice and it's helpful to have a fully rendered out painting for this, right? But if you're feeling overwhelmed, and even I, when I'm like, oh, I have to draw all of this, I feel overwhelmed, right? And so what I'll do, this is where you're allowed to take the creative liberties as your own artist, right? It's like this drawing has one hand. It don't matter to me, right? Time to put in another. And so now personally, why am I including this here is because within the themes of my work, and because they are heavy on ancient Egyptian religions and spiritualism and rebirth, I am reincorporating. You also keep in mind, you gotta do this yourself as an artist, right? It's a good way to include your own personal elements in the work. Is I'm incorporating some of the Islamic culture that I learned growing up in Egypt within the work, right? And so as you see here, I just changed that finger into going up, because that's the open palm prayer sign. And so, and then I'll just take another and just add the hands, right? And then we zoom out, see if it looks good. It sort of looks good. It doesn't look too bad, actually. It don't look too bad. It don't look too bad. So I'll just add fingers here. And then what else needs to be added? And so quickly, let's scroll through. Should we drop the pen? Should we draw anything? I might actually include that little face, the little demon boy. I've had a thing in multiple of my works, and you'll notice this, artists, like some artists have a knack for either depicting the same figure in their works or like including cats in a certain way. I know a painter, there's a famous painter on Twitter that draws her cats, but it's like, if it's a black cat, it's just literally like black smudge and then 2 yellow dots for the eyes, and that's pretty identifiable. And so for this, I might actually. Oh, never. Hold up. Never mind. See this face? We're gonna say screw it because I've stared at this work many a times and I've never realized this. So I like this. I like this a lot. I like this a lot. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually elongate one of these, right? And because we got fog, right? You can get away with not drawing the full face, just like he did. Right? And how do you, there you go. How do you get the full face to register? There you go. It's all very simple. And once you understand that it's like simplicity is the thing that makes it, it's all, oh boy. It's like, oh, what? Because like, so a big example actually is go look at a John Singer Sargent painting and zoom in and you'll realize how messy his paintings actually are compared to how they look, right? It's like this does not look like a correct shoe placement, but it works. It registers. And so then how would you start studying this, right? Now personally, I wouldn't start with this as a person trying to prepare for a work. This trying to study this first off, if I'm trying to warm up, will actually piss you off. There is so much stuff and so much transition in color, shading, right? Just so much forms that are biological in sense but are not real, right? So you need to invent them, and that's hard, right? And so you warm up with something that you can sort of invent around and fuck up. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna take this out of this. I'm gonna put it on the side here, and then we're gonna blow this boy up, and we're gonna get the bucket and then go there. I said I don't work in layers, but you sort of have to when you're working on above another work, and I usually don't like opening another file. So um, now that I am able to do this on a whole fit, and so I really want to focus on those hands, right? And so quickly, very quickly, right? As a study, like um, sort of the end of this meeting is going to be with me finishing the study, because usually that's where I would be ending it, sort of for today, just like as working on the painting itself. But how do you start like such? It doesn't even have to be the perfect study, but it needs to be well enough that you register the form that you want to draw, you understand it, right? That you're able to draw it again, and the next time you draw it, it obviously is going to be a little bit easier for you because you've drawn it again, and so quickly, um, you just put the basics, right? And so, oh, I'm on white again. Here we go. So that's the hand, and I guarantee you this won't be perfect. I guarantee it to you this won't be perfect, but we're not looking for perfect here, right? And so this there, right? And so the hand curves a little bit, and so, right? And then sort of there, right? And then so basic shape sort of done, right? And so then you're like, okay, cool, that looks like crap. I agree. It does, but that's just because it's the basic shape. And so then because I'm on a tablet, right, I can do this and finish the drawing, right? You can't do this in real life, so first of all, pick the placement correctly, for the study, and then secondly, just start with just the lines, right? You just pick a part that you like, that you keep that you're drawn to over and over, and you just start drawing. and so this finger curves a little bit, and so you curve the boy, right? And then again, this will not be perfect, but so one of the hardest things for me about thumbs is that little knuckle on top there. Right? It really fucks with perspective sometimes for people, and so it's one of my first things that I like to get out the way. And so you also have to know how like bones are structured. Well, not how bones are structured, but like how they look, right? So look at your hands, right? Between every knuckle, it's sort of like it's a little divot. So there, and then right here, that's where the palm sort of starts, and that's where the drawing sort of ends, right? Usually, this is the hand. This is the hand right here, like foreshortened. So if you don't know if you don't know what foreshortening means, is simulating 3D using 2D. So when something is coming at you in a drawing, it's been foreshortened, right? Perspective includes foreshortening. Like when I do this is foreshortening because it's appearing 3D, right? I can light, but it's not actually, right? It's like if I actually go, oh, well, I can't, but if I go, well, here. So, well, so if I go do this, right, and I press control, now Photoshop has some pretty amazing shit, but if I press shit, you see, it starts to, it looks weird. But yeah. So let me just, it does not matter, I have to use my, so that's what foreshortening is, and believe it or not, this hand has some foreshortening in it. It's just hard as hell to do. Hand foreshortening is one of the worst things. It's not like it's just it's hard to draw. It's actually very hard to draw. A lot of people suffer trying to draw hands. It's the bane of a lot of drawers in art school. And so the fingers in this are a little bit, you know, like as if the person has like sort of what do you call it? Arthritis. They're a little bit on the thicker side, and that's because Kate Hollowitz herself as a painter. You also have to understand like how these are depicting low class German families during World War II, right? And so this is when inflation in Germany was insane through the roof. So you have kids dying all the time, right? Debt and all that jazz. And so the hands like growing up, like we have a saying that the hands inform you of like how hard the person has lived and such. And so these hands inform you of like the hardships that this person has had, right? And so they're a little bit bulkier, they're a little bit rough on the side, right? They also, the wrinklier something is, the easier it is to show age, right? And as you can see, I'm not adding in like details like this is, right? I'm still messing around, right? I'm not, and you'll see like the work completely, this hand will get short, I guarantee you that, right? And so little finger there, and then it's a little nub, and then that's the knuckle, right? And then nail there, and then here. And even so in the drawing you can't even see, you can't see the shading for this. You really can't. And so you see what I mean by this hand is completely different. This is why you draw the basic shapes, because once you start, here, let me erase some of these first, but once you start getting into the actual line work, sometimes you realize your basic shapes are way too big, right? And then you can just adjust for that on the fly, because this still worked as a guide, right? You can just adjust to it left to right. Oh, it's a little bit off, it's a little bit too wide, I can just I can thin it up a little bit and, you know, decrease like the width of it, you know. And so now I'm just gonna erase this here. And so that's done. We're gonna erase that. And then right here. And so this is what I would personally start shading. And so again, you'll notice my shading is very rough. Because to me, this is a correct study, and it's a very informative study. It actually is, but it doesn't need to be shaded to the nines, you know. And so I'm just going in quick. Right, you're just looking in. I'm also a crosshatcher, and so I love just going in with stuff like this. Oh my, hold up, what is, there we go. And then here I'm getting a line there. So sometimes when you're drawing digitally, you run into issues of your what is it? Your tablet not registering the right pressure, and so that's why some stuff appears darker than others. And so you gotta keep in mind this gets completely dark around here, and so and you can just connect that to there, right? And then there's another little thing here, right? You gotta keep in mind the veins. You have veins in your hand. As you can see, I'm still going quick, right? I'm not slowing down for this. I'm not slowing down for this at all. I'm just there, right? And then around here, focus on this a little bit, and then just keep going down, right? And then here, around, this is the second part of your knuckle, but it still spreads, and so now I'm just changing the orientation of the stroke, right? Because I remember the hand, your skin also stretches that way, right? And so I'm just using this to block in these, and I'm also aware that the simple fact that I'm gonna have to do this after, so that's why I started doing these strokes. And so once that's there, you do that. Right, I still have this identifiable line to let me know where it is, and then I still have these to where I can just go, right? And then here, just lightly. It doesn't matter if you have too many dark areas, you just need to know exactly where you're putting your shading, right? And so I have no problem doing this. Because then I'll build it on top here. And same thing here. And so this really helps you, like helps your eye also get informed of where am I going to be putting the darker blocks of paint, the colorful areas of the paint in the browns, right? And so there. And then same with the nails. Don't forget the nails. That's one thing I tend to forget sometimes. Right, and so that nail's a bit wonky, but that's fine. And so I've personally hit the point where I'm no longer looking at the source. I'm just shading the image now. And I've been drawing for long enough to sort of, and I've drawn hands enough to know how to sort of shade them. But in a case like this, you would still be looking at your, I would recommend that you'd be looking at your source. I really do, because otherwise you will make some mistakes. And actually, as I finish this, I'll explain. I can let you in on the secret that my teacher did that helped explain to me like how brains work in artists, right? And so, if you were to think of a cup, right, you can draw a cup fairly easily because you know how it sort of works, right? That's one of the things that I learned is because you know how it works. So once you know how something works, you'll be able to draw it. I learned how to draw a forearm, like an arm, because I learned movement, 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 right? And so arm, bicep, right? Right? Same thing with a cup. We know how a cup works because it's just one shape, water, right? And so, say you're like, how the hell do I draw an arm? You just flip it upside down. Legitimately, flip it upside down, and you as an artist, you'll be like as a person in general, you'll be amazed of what the, because the moment you flip it upside down, if it's something new, your brain no longer knows what it is. You have no image in your brain of it, and so you just focus on the lines, right? And if you don't know how it works, right, you need to focus on the lines. Otherwise, you won't be able to come up with the frame for it that then you can just build on, right? And so it's one of those little things. So, and then again, very messy still, right? Here we go. Funny enough, the exercise is a very common exercise in the book. What is it? Drawing on the right side or the left side of the brain. It's the fucking holy grail of every fucking art teacher in the world. They're like, this book is great. This book will teach you how to draw. This book will teach you artistic drawing practice. And all it does is just tell you your brain is really crap at remembering how things look. And that's about it. But yeah, and so here we're getting close to being almost done, and you're like, if you're wondering how this is not fully finished, again, like I'm not focusing on full rendering here, right? I'm doing that in the actual final work itself, so I don't need to, right? And so here, what I notice quickly is just we do that here to darken it, right? Give it that sense of more form, and then here also just give it that little depth. And as you can see right here, like this finger, it's not even rendered in at all, right? It's not, but it's because I've darkened this so much, your eye immediately registers either is it as a hand, right? And if I were to go in and go in with huge black, right, around, which is a technique you use actually as an artist if you want to make your stuff pop. You just and then here, let me just thicken them lines up. See, and it immediately just pops up. Done. And so now, well, I did say, let me take this back. Well, I did say I want, right? I'm making the hands in prayer. I don't need to really practice that now, right? And so, as you're an artist, if you as you draw more and more, it just becomes harder to stop. But yeah, and so there, and that's your study done for the work. That's essentially one of my studies done for our duet residency shows. Um, right, and keep in mind I still have a full idea. Now I'm just gonna merge these. Alright, I still have this. This is this part right here. And so that's essentially the little walkthrough process of research to little painting idea. Now if you haven't joined from the beginning, or if you listen to this, you have to realize that I've been thinking about this specific idea for a while, right? um, that's why I've been able to select my sources so easily, is because I've been staring at these painting sources. um, that's because I've been staring at these sources for like the past few weeks, right? I've been doing Bekinski studies since last month. um, and so I've been staring at some of this stuff, and it's been sitting in my mind for a while before I even started drawing, right? And so even if you're sitting there and you're thinking of, man, is it actually valid for me to sit there and come up with an idea? Yes it is. Because in the same reason somebody can sit there and think of conceptual art, you're allowed to sit and think of the concept and the themes behind your work that will lead up to the work, right? And if the themes and the concept behind your work, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to gather your resources, right? It doesn't even matter how long it takes you to execute the actual work, right? Because if it's fully thought out and it's powerful, it shouldn't matter how quick, how big, or how fast it's executed, right? And so, hopefully, this has been informative to anybody who's seeing how artists can come up with ideas for a painting. And again, this can always change, and I guarantee you this will change on the canvas. um, but we will see. Next Wednesday, around this time, is our third meeting. We'll have both artists here, and we'll be sharing more of our progress pictures of the show. I do recommend you check out our channel, because we've had a few artists, the artists drop links to their work, I believe, and so some of the work is there. But yeah, thank you for listening, and thank you to Fud Zero for listening in live. You a G. To everybody else, every Wednesday, and then these get uploaded the week after, so the Wednesday after. But yeah, um, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and see you next week. Bye bye.